really slow. My internet is definitely failing. Greetings, welcome to the Joint Transforming Assessment and eAssessment Association webinar today. We are looking at the eAssessment Awards and we've got 3 presenters. But first, we'll have Hannah who's representing the eAssessment Association to introduce the session. So thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Matthew. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Awards Winners Showcase webinar from the eAssessment Association and Transforming Assessment. And thank you to our organisers today. My name's Hannah Chiborowska, and I'm representing the EAA as one of their executive board members. But this webinar is also of particular interest to my organisation, the British Council. We are the UK's international and cultural relations organisation, and my team in particular, the Global Exam Services team, we're particularly interested in supporting this as we've been headline sponsors of the EAA Awards over the past few years. So hoping we're going to be able to see a couple of slides about the EAA if that's possible, Matthew, just to talk a little bit more about the EAA, who we are and our mission, and then I'll introduce each of the speakers for today's webinar. Can we move, or I can move myself? That's right, there we go. Okay,
yeah, Hannah, you need to press the arrow button on the bottom. Put on, yep.
I got it, yeah. So about the EAA, based in the UK, but we are an international association, a not-for-profit organisation committed to advancing the use of technology in assessment. We provide a platform for collaboration, knowledge sharing and innovation across the education and technology sectors, helping our community drive the future of assessments. At the moment, we have 15 volunteer board directors, a large number of sponsors, and well over 5,000 individual members spanning all continents at the moment. And a little bit about us, you can get engaged and follow some of our channels. You can listen and watch our resources, including this one that we're doing today. And you can read some of our case studies, articles and newsletters. This is all available on our website. So our key focus areas at the moment are innovation in digital assessment, exploring cutting edge technologies and methodologies, networking and collaboration, building connections across industries to shape the future of e-assessment, and driving inclusivity and accessibility in assessment, so ensuring that e-assessment reaches everyone, everywhere. So we're really focused on these areas at the moment. And a bit more about the awards. So this year's awards was a huge success. We had new awards and more entries than ever, and they attracted entries from right across the world, from all continents, Asia, Africa, Europe, Oceania, and North America. And they celebrate and showcase the very best practices, research, and innovations in technology-enabled assessment. And for people who take part in them, it's a fantastic opportunity to highlight your achievements on a global scale. So this year we had 14 awards, including some new award categories. We were really excited to launch, for example, our brand new AI in Assessment Innovation Award and a new Professional Certification Program of the Year Award. And you can see the other categories on your screen, from Best International Implementation, Best Formative and Summative Assessment Projects, Best Workplace and Most Innovative Use of Technology in Assessment, Best Transformational Project, Best Research, Best Practitioner of the Year, and some other new partner awards that we launched this year. So Most Innovative Use of Digital Badges in the Assessment Awards and Educational Assessment Outcomes Awards with our partners over at ICOBC and CIEA. We also have a Lifetime Contribution Award recognising significant people in the industry and their contributions over their well-earned careers. And just a little bit about our winners today. So we've got 3 people presenting today from those awards who have been winners, and we've got Best Summative Assessment Project Award, Oxford University Press representing that today, Best Formative Assessment Project Award from Sentira XR. And just a note about Sentira, congratulations to them because they also won in several other award categories this year, AI and Assessment Innovation and most innovative use of technology as well. We also have Best Transformational Project from Open Assessment Technologies and their collaboration with the Generalitat in Valenciana in Spain. So we're looking forward to hearing more about those 3 winning projects. So without further ado, I will hand over to our presenters today, because I know they have a lot to talk about and our time is limited. So we have Oxford University Press, and we have over to their slides. Thank you very much. You will be able to ask questions in the chat as well. Post questions during all of the speakers' talks, and they'll get back to you when they can. We'll have some time at the end to follow up on any questions that have not yet been answered. So thank you, and over to Colin Finnerty for Oxford University Press.
Thank you very much. So as you just heard, I'll be talking about the Oxford Test of English Advanced, and we'll be looking in particular at aspects of wash back and wash forward, which were considerations in the test design, and they were called out in the rationale for us winning the Best Summative prize. Before we dig into that, though, let me just situate the Oxford Test of English Advanced test within its overall test suite. So there are 3 tests: the Oxford Test of English, the Oxford Test of English for Schools. These both measure A2 to B2. And then the recent Oxford Test of English Advanced, which measures B2 to C1. The reason we call them a suite is because they're all proficiency tests. They're all modular, so they cover speaking, listening, reading, and writing, and test takers can take 1 or more in any combination of those modules. The listening and reading are computer adaptive, which means the test tailors each individual set of questions to each individual test taker. The speaking and writing are randomized, marked by humans. All of these tests have been through thorough CFR alignment activities. They're available worldwide, and they are all certified by the University of Oxford. Okay, so let's move on to looking more closely at how we went about designing the Oxford Test of English Advanced. Obviously, we align to best practice, so we are members of ALTE, and we follow their good practice principles in actually the processes of going through the design. The test is very much aligned to the CEFRs, and so the CFR companion had just come out at that point, so we built the test from the ground up around the CFRs to ensure alignment and coverage. And then when it came to doing alignment activities, the new CFR handbook had just come out at that point, so we aligned it to that. We also looked at lots of other sources, so you can see one there, the British Association of Lecturers for English for academic purposes, because we wanted the test to be particularly useful for people trying to enter as undergraduates. We tried to ensure that the test would reflect some of the skills that they were going to need, and that's where the wash forward comes from. It wasn't just designed as a test to be a hoop that people have to jump through to get to university, but rather something that would really help them to survive once they got there. I've mentioned the CFR, and that you're probably aware the CFR divides communication into 4 modes: reception, so that might be, for example, listening to a voicemail message; production, that would be leaving a voicemail message; interaction, that would be a conversation; and mediation, which is a very broad concept in the new revised CEFRs. Traditionally, mediation would be one person translating for 2 other people. However, it's much wider than that, and we focus particularly on that as these mediation skills, often seen as very important for undergraduate, for new undergraduates. So we'll look at how we did that. As part of the test design, we adopt the socio-cognitive framework. We're not going to go into that in any great detail. You can see that's just one tiny aspect of it. You can see on the screen there. But I do want to call out consequential validity, which is often referred to as washback. And washback is really the effect the test has on anything before the test is actually taken. So that might be in particular teaching. So what effect does the test have on people preparing for the test? Is preparing for the test actually helping them prepare for life, or is it just helping them prepare to pass some strange questions? So let's have a look at some examples of bad washback, just to hit home exactly what we were trying to avoid in the test. So here's an example of negative washback. So this is a question that isn't in our test. We avoided these kind of questions like the plague, but they are in lots of other tests out there. So a keyword transformation, for example, we can see it says complete the second sentence so that it has a similar meaning to the first sentence using the word given. Don't change the word given. You must use between 2 and 5 words, including the word given. So quite a complex set of instructions there, and we can see that we have an original sentence. I haven't received an invitation from Tom yet. We've got a keyword still, which we need to use in the gap below, along with other words, 2 to 5 words, to create a sentence that means the same thing. Would anybody like to try to guess what the answer is? Well, actually, I'll show you the answer and decide if you think this answer is okay or not. So Tom still hasn't sent an invite. Well, if we take a look at that, you'll see that that wouldn't actually get full marks. And the reason is they missed out a word. So you can imagine if you're practicing for a test that has this kind of question, you're going to spend a lot of time trying to work out how to avoid these kind of errors. And while you're doing that, you're not concentrating on actually improving your English for the purpose that you're studying, which is to succeed as an undergraduate. So we avoid those kind of questions. Here's another example of some questions out there that are we try to avoid. Here there's a bunch of pseudo words, and the test taker has to, or the student has to decide which are real words and which aren't. Again, we avoid those because if you go on YouTube, you'll see lots of videos of teachers trying to help students prepare for this kind of test, which means looking at lots and lots of words that don't exist, which isn't great. So what did we do in our test design? Well, we only have a short amount of time, so let's take a look at the speaking module, which give you an idea of how we went about this. So in the speaking module, the test taker has starts off with a short interview. This is just to settle them into the test. This is followed by a voice message. Now, the focus of this voice message is on diplomacy in responding to a situation. This is one of the things that you find introduced at C1 level, but isn't at a lower level. So it really distinguishes the ability of C1 to other abilities. We then have a summary where the test taker listens to 2 experts and has to synthesize and summarize the information for the 2 experts into a single oral summary. Again, a very common skill required for undergraduates. And then there's a debate, or at least part of a debate, where test takers have to put a case forward, developing arguments, sustaining arguments, and concluding arguments. So let's take a look at see what they look like. So here's an example of the voice message, which is focusing on handling situations diplomatically. As I said, this marks out C1 from the lower B2 level. So you're studying at an international college. Your classmates have identified some issues with how the lecturer conducts lectures. You have agreed to talk to the lecturer on behalf of the students. Leave a voicemail message for your tutor and explain what the issues are and why they are problematic. Describe how the students feel about this and persuade the lecturer what to do next. So you'll see that the CFR descriptors, just a handful, there are many more around this particular test type, but some of the germane ones are they can make critical remarks and express disagreement diplomatically. Real skill. So then the washback effect of this is that teachers will spend time focusing on diplomatic language in classroom, which is going to be much more productive than focusing on, for example, pseudo words, and can use persuasive language diplomatically. We take a look at another task from the speaking test. This is focusing on integrated skills, or mediation, as we saw from the CFRs earlier. And here is where the test taker summarizes and synthesizes information. So let's take a look at the instructions. You're going to give a summary. First, read and listen to the task, then decide what you want to say. You have 50 seconds to give your summary. And then we have a situated task. Your tutor has asked you to summarize some research for your tutor group. Listen to the two experts talking about logic. The two experts make the same two main points. You should combine the information from the two experts, summarize the two main points the experts make, and then they listen. So I'm going to show the audio script, but they don't see this. They just listen to two experts. They're taking notes again. So this is part of mediation, being able to listen to inputs and discern main ideas from supporting evidence and write those down, and then combine them into a single response. And we can see how that relates to the CFR here. Can select relevant detailed information and arguments on complex abstract topics from multiple oral sources, and also can summarize clearly in well-structured speech the main points made in complex spoken language. So once again, if we think about the washback effect of this, it means that in classrooms, teachers will be setting these kind of tasks where test takers need to focus on listening and note-taking. Again, a very useful skill for undergraduates, or for people new in work even, and then combining information. It's a kind of skill that can develop easily over time. There's lots of research that shows that actually summary writing is a very teachable skill. Then if we look at the next task within the speaking test, it's the debate task. So let's take a look at the instructions here, and again look at the washback effect. So you're going to take part in a debate. First, read and listen to the task, then decide what you want to say. Your tutor has asked you to take part in a class debate. You're going to put a case for or against, so the student gets to choose how they want to frame the debate. For or against the following statement: shorter working hours would be a good thing for society. Prepare your case for the debate. You should use 2 or 3 of the ideas below, so they're over to the right there, for you to argue your case. Provide support for your ideas and give a conclusion. They have some time to prepare and make notes, and then make their case, put that forward. And you can see on the right there, the question is repeated with some ideas around, from which the test taker selects 2 or 3 ideas. And it's important to note that in the design of this test, we once again align to the CFR, so can argue a case on a complex issue precisely, employing emphasis effectively, and can develop an argument systematically. So that's what we were aiming to do. And again, the washback effect here is that teachers can set up debates. They can set up reading first, and then have people summarize reading, and then do their debate. So once again, the various skills in the speaking test can be exploited in the classroom. And if we have a look at some of the considerations when making the test, that we took a genre-based approach. So there's a debate. So most people know what a debate is. They know that there are different aspects of the debate, setting out your case to begin with, and then interacting. There's a clear audience, and that's important so that people know how to pitch their language. If you don't know the audience, how do you know how to pitch your language? There's a clear purpose to the test. In this case, it's putting a case for or against something. And then some housekeeping. Preparation time is clear, along with notes. And I'd just like to take a moment to compare that to traditional 2-minute turns. So if you look on the right there, you can see an IELTS question. Describe someone something you own, which is very important to you. You should say where you got it from, how long you have had it, what you use it for, and explain why it's important to you. And you'll notice there's no real genre here. What exactly have I got to do? There's no schema I have in my mind for this, really. The purpose, why am I answering this? Well, it's just because it's in a test, but there's no other purpose. Who am I talking to? What's the audience? There's no clear audience. And the kind of language that this is going to elicit is going to be largely descriptive and personal, which isn't the greatest preparation for interacting in as an undergraduate. So you can see, in conclusion, we would avoid that kind of question and ensure that the tasks are really helping prepare people for success as an undergraduate. I think I'm out of time there, but if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or we can take them at the end.
Thanks, Colin. That's great. And Hannah, do we want to move on to the next one, or take a... We don't have any questions in the chat at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I was just going to ask, were there anything unexpected that came out from your project, or anything that changed during the project in the design?
Yes, so whenever we design things, we always set out with our best ideas, but the whole reason that we pilot things is so that we are totally fallible. That's, I think, the number one thing we always try to remember. And so once we have a test design, we go out and we trial it and we iterate it. So for example, the debate task in front of you, we had to work out how many the advice on the number of prompts to include. So you can see there were 5 prompts there, and originally we didn't prescribe how many prompts the test taker should use. We just said use the ideas, and that led to most test takers trying to address all 5 items. And the problem with addressing all 5 items is they never really got any great extent. They were just a short couple of sentences about each item. And what we were looking for the debate is to have make a sustained point. And to make a sustained point, you can't have too many ideas within those 2 minutes. It's better to pick 1 or 2 and really talk about them and go into depth. So that's just one example of how when we're designing, we have to go out, trial them with real people, and then iterate off the back of that until we know we've got it right.
Thanks, Colin. Yeah, really interesting to hear how that process works. And congratulations again on winning Best Summative Assessment this year.
Thank you.
Okay, if you do have any questions, please post them. We can come back to them at the end. We will move on to our next presenter today.
Yeah, I think there's about 10 more slides that I didn't use, so you might need to whiz through those.
We may not have time, but these look really good on writing. Perhaps schedule a follow-up to have a look at these in more detail. And reading, of course, yeah.
That's right. I'm trying to get through them, but my internet is really slow. So Hannah, you might need to click forward and get through the end, get to the next lot. Sorry about that.
No worries, I'm getting there, I think.
I think that's the last one. There you go.
Great. Oh, to the questions. Fantastic. Okie doke. So our next presenter, Jeremy, from Sentira XR, is going to talk about his Best Formative Assessment project. And as I mentioned earlier, this also won in some other exciting categories, such as the AI in Assessment Innovation Award and Most Innovative Use of Technology Award category. So congratulations, Jeremy, for winning 3 awards this year's event. Hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hannah. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all. As Hannah said, my name is Jeremy Carter. I'm the CEO at Sentira XR. And yeah, going to talk about our our project for the best formative assessment award that we entered. Now, when I've done presentations over the last 2 or 3 years, I've always started with a question, which was, can I have a show of hands of anybody that's actually tried VR? But we're going to change that up a bit because we've now got to the point where most people have. But I've got a couple of questions now. We moved that question on to if anybody could indicate in the chat whether they've ever used VR in their teaching and learning practice. So I'll give you a couple of seconds just to pop that in, and a yes or a no, that would be great. Okay, and has anybody in the audience ever used anything like an AI character in teaching and learning? Okay, so what you're going to see or hear me talk about today is something that would be quite new for most people then. So a little bit about us. Why did we come to be, and what were we looking at solving? So we're actually come out of the University of Manchester, and that was because of a number of factors. One, they were having issues with scaling out training to healthcare students. So having to get in actors or having tutors play the voices of mannequins when they were doing their healthcare training, and having any kind of patient interaction. And they were finding that we're having to repeat sessions. Some tutors were having to repeat sessions up to 60 times in order to get through their cohort. It was inefficient, used up a lot of time and resources, and obviously bringing in actors was becoming increasingly expensive. So that's really how we started. And as well as obviously the practical challenges, they were also facing some challenges in terms of how they were able to give feedback to the students as they were learning. So the traditional methods meant that obviously they couldn't give feedback in real time because there would be a cohort of students there, so the individualized feedback wasn't available until perhaps a tutor session later on, and that lost its impact. There was some subjectivity, and particularly with regard to when they were doing practice OSCEs. So some variability and bias was coming into market judgments, and that's something that exists within traditional OSCEs anyway. As I mentioned, there's some scalability issues. So they had to have a lot of staff, patient actors, use physical space. And the actual focus was quite narrow in terms of what was being assessed. So it really wasn't able to get into the nuts and bolts of the students' communication and decision making. It was very much on a clinical basis. Have they diagnosed? Have they actually put together a treatment plan? Which is all great. We need to be able to assess that. But how have they done that? What's the process that they've gone through? What's their clinical decision-making skills like? And how have they interacted with the patient? All of those were challenges that we set out to solve. So we did this by developing a suite of immersive AI-powered VR simulations. So what we have is we have what we call patient avatars. So these are all linked into our AI system. And that means that you can have an authentic conversation as you would with any human being. It's not limited to obviously the clinical conversation. You can ask all of our characters about their personal history, their background, where they like to go on holiday, what their favorite car is, do they have any pets, and that means that the conversation is truly authentic. Now, if you go off on a tangent too much, then you will also find that the patient will bring you back on track by reminding you that yeah, this is all very well and nice, but I'm not really here to talk about where I went on holiday because my leg hurts a lot. So, but what we didn't want is anything that broke up the natural flow of conversation, which is really important for patient healthcare workers. So with that in mind, we can put in students and into lots of different scenarios where they would encounter a patient, and that could be in all sorts of different environments. It could be in a hospital, it could be the patient's home, it could be a GP surgery, it could be a care home, where you're not actually speaking to the patient themselves, you're speaking to the care home worker. And what we're able to do is give real-time personalized feedback. So we look at, obviously we talked about the clinical reasoning. So are they asking the right questions? Are they they're doing the history taking? Are they asking the right clinical questions? We also cover procedural accuracy, so the use of equipment. Are they using the right equipment in the right order? Are they following the right process? And on top of that, how are they communicating with the patient as they go along? And the way that you communicate with our patients will actually dictate the type of response that you get back. So some patients will respond to you and give you more information depending on your communication style. And so ultimately what we've developed is a series of safe, repeatable and authentic environments and scenarios for students to practice in, and they have access to that 24/7. So when we were looking at this particular project, what we worked with a number of partners. So the University of Manchester, the South Yorkshire Primary Care Workforce and Training Hub, the University of Worcester, and the UK-based National Tracheostomy Safety Project. And what this allowed us to do was a pilot with quite a large number of students, but across multiple disciplines. So we were working with students that were in nursing. We were working with pharmacy students. We also, through the National Tracheostomy Safety Project, were working with those who were already in the workforce, and they were getting training on emergency airway management. And we were also working with those that had gone through the majority of their clinical training and were in the final stages of their GP training. So that gave us a really broad depth of student cohort, and these are all from organizations that are research based as well, and so we were able to put together the academic research questionnaires and papers to get the feedback. We managed our deployments out using platforms called ManageXR and ArborXR, which enabled us to just push the scenarios directly onto devices without any need for the IT team at the relevant organizations, and that enabled us to get those out to the students really quickly, really easily. And it meant that we really didn't have any support calls because we managed the deployment ourselves, and it was just pushed out centrally. We didn't have any issues with people being able to access content on devices. So as I mentioned, we had a large number of students taking the assessments and the formative scenarios, and they had a series of questionnaires at the end of that, which the vast majority, I think we had over 90% complete those questionnaires. which gave us a lot of information in terms of how this could fit into their learning practices. So over 88% found that it was helpful for their learning. It was motivating. Really interesting was that it increased their confidence in their clinical skills, and that's one of the things that really came out of it, is that actually when they're students, that's one of the things that they kind of feel most nervous about when they go into a placement. So by increasing their confidence, they felt that they were ready for their clinical placements, and they'd be more effective in their clinical placements. So that helped make sure that we had those scenario-based learning implementation that kept those students challenged and supported, because they all got their personalized feedback. So what was the impact that we saw? So we do have the evidence of improved knowledge retention. So particularly regarding the tracheostomy training. So what happened there was we did an equivalence, and we found that the effectiveness of the training was equivalent at the point of delivery for in-person and the use of VR. But when we brought those students back about 6 weeks later, those that had been trained using the VR scored better in the follow-up assessments. So they had retained the knowledge better, and they'd had they were very clear that that's what they felt. We have a lot of data-driven analytics. So we were trying to give the educators as much information as we could on their cohort, where the areas of strength and weakness were across the cohort as well as individual, were there particular clinical scenarios that their students were struggling with, and so that they could then refine their teaching practices. We've had reports of cost efficiencies, so the universities in particular felt that they needed fewer examiners, and they didn't need to use all their physical facilities as much. They could allow students to take these to take the scenarios in their own time and then review afterwards. And again, particularly with the tracheostomy training, which people actually come from all over the country and indeed all over the world to the training centres in the UK, we were able to deliver that training remotely. So there was lower travel and reduced resources. So we're also able, because of the technology, to develop a vast range of patient avatars. So we can make sure that those ones that are actually quite challenging to get students to be able to practice with, including pediatrics, so children, it's very difficult to get child actors in. We're able to do all of those things. So we have diverse ethnic, gender, cultural representation within our avatars. We align everything with the WCAG VR usability standards. We give multimodal feedback, visual cues, text analytics back to the students, and as I mentioned, we do remote access. So we have people that have taken the scenarios internationally as well. And we've got a couple of questions that are coming in. I'll just quickly look at robustness and scalability. So we are AWS hosted with device agnostic. The response times are sub-second. So we actually recognize the speech and then return that back as the patient responding. We are now looking at multilingual capability, and we're looking at improving obviously our accent and dialect recognition, and whether we can work with some offline compatible modules. And we've also just started streaming as well. So actually we don't necessarily need VR headsets. So let's just address, we've only got 1 minute or so left. So I'm just going to address some of the questions. So Matthew's asked, okay, are the virtual actors driven by LLMs or some other AI tool? So it's a combination. So the first layer is ours, so it's proprietary LLM, and what we do with that is we have all of the clinical information in there. So that we work with our partners, we make sure that the clinical accuracy, we have in our team clinically trained people as part of our QA process. And we align them with all of the standards, that NICE standards and so on. So the clinical part is of the AI is built by us. Where we do use a third-party LLMs is for the peripheral part. So we'll build the character. And we'll put in their personal history, their social history, and what have you. If the system doesn't recognize the context of the question, then it will go a further layer down, and it will use one of the LLMs to produce a response that keeps the conversation flowing. And have we gone about minimizing and preventing virtual actors from generating false information? Well, hopefully I've just answered that. So they don't have free reign. It's very much the guide rails that are in there. They can only respond using the information that we've programmed into them. And yeah, so that's how we manage that. Then Sai has asked, could our products be adapted for an IT school context for programming or something? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think I think I've got one more slide. So yeah, what we can do is anything that's got any form of human interaction or communication, we can certainly do. So we have lots of use cases that we're being asked about that are beyond healthcare, but also, so an IT school context. So, well, yes, we could, theoretically, we could definitely look at that. So we could ask the students to perform procedural and process-driven tasks, and that kind of the AI can monitor how they do that in the background. So potentially, yes, if you want to get in touch with us, Sai, then we can discuss that further. But yeah, my time is up. Thank you very much for listening. And if there are no further questions, I'll hand back over to Hannah.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. And I think you addressed the question, so that's fantastic. So our final speaker, I'll hand over. Let me just get the introduction. So handing over to Open Assessment Technologies, and they've worked with the Valencia region in Spain on transforming their assessment from paper to digital. And Miguel Prieto is presenting today. I'll hand over to you, Miguel.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Miguel Prieto. I'm Vice President of Corporate Strategy at Open Assessment Technologies. Before we jump into the transformation case, I'd like to give you a brief introduction about what do we do in Open Assessment Technologies. The company was founded in 2013, and today we are the leaders in open software with the focus on the assessment world. We currently deliver about 30 million tests per year, and we are focused working with ministries of education and private organizations modernizing their assessment world. Now we jump into what deal we do with our customer in Valencia. The central government in Spain passed a law a couple of years ago by which they were requesting all the autonomous regions in Spain, this is 17 regions, to perform a digital evaluation on which the focus was to measure all the regions across each other to understand what is the level of the students. In particular, Valencia has a population of 5.4 million people, and is the fourth largest region in Spain. In total, they have approximately 800,000 students and 1,700 schools. Over the diagnostic evaluation that we performed with the customer, we were grading fourth graders from primary school and second graders from secondary school. And the subjects that were in scope were math, linguistic communication, and foreign languages. What was the goal of this project? So the government wanted to collect comparable information about student competencies and link these competencies with the socio-economic context of the students. So they wanted to see how they perform based on their family background. They wanted to as well not only to do this diagnostic assessment with a high stakes approach, but they were more focused on the system learning and improvement to identify where were the weaknesses of the system and develop a correction plan to improve the teaching in the schools. And this was aligned with the new competency-based curriculum that was introduced in Spain in 2022, which wanted to evaluate communication and mathematics to develop a plan to improve on this area. Looking at what was the status of the solution before the transformation into digital, the prior round of this diagnostic assessment was run on a paper base. So this was for the 2 degrees and 3 subjects, which brought significant challenges. There were big operational pain points, heavy logistics. So this is like the printing of all the exams, distribution of the exams to the 1,700 schools, and then picking up those exams and grading those. It brought additional burden to the teachers, where they had to manually grade all these exams, and it was a process that was prone to errors. So teachers grading manually the questions and introducing this data in a database proved not to be precise and correct, and there were a lot of inconsistencies. The logistics, of course, was a significant cost of printing and shipping all those exams. It brought different challenges as well on the accessibility. So students with different difficulties having to take the exam on paper, it was not the best suited for their needs. And of course, with the growing pressure of reducing cost and carbon footprint, a digital migration was making sense. So for all these issues, our customer in Valencia decided to endeavor themselves in a digital transformation to run the assessments on a digital scale. How did they deploy this large-scale assessment? First of all, they planned a pilot on which approximately 1,000 students tested the platform to ensure that it was meeting the requirements, accessibility requirements, and that the students felt comfortable with the design of the questions and how the system was operating. Additionally, there was some training provided to the administrators and teachers supervising the test. And what happened then on the live campaign? So the approximately 360,000 exams, they were distributed over a period of 5 weeks, on which students were taking this exam on shifts. Why on shifts? Because the region didn't have enough devices to have all the students taking the exam simultaneously, so they have to organize the students going to the IT room to take this exam in different shifts. What was the feedback that we got after the assessment took place? So customers confirmed that there was positive feedback from both the teachers and the students. They ran surveys across all the schools, and they got a 80% satisfaction ratio with how the campaign ran and how smooth went the delivery of the assessments. Of course, the ministry was as well satisfied, because this represented a reduction in the cost compared with the traditional paper approach. And After this successful implementation, other regions in Spain, which they are subject to the same law, they decided to implement the same approach and contact us to develop their digital assessment solution. What are the main benefits that our customer could identify based on the test that they run? The move from paper to digital was mainly motivated for the difficulties that they were having on the logistics and the grading of all these exams. But what they really appreciated was the interoperability of the software, content portability, so questions that are generated in a PDF or in a Word document can be seamlessly imported into the software, and then these questions as well can be exported into other assessment software as long as this is QTI as well software. All these standards are sponsored by the One Tech Association. We had the challenge of the migration of the items. There was approximately 1,000 items or questions to be digitalized into QTI format. This was done in less than 1 month. Another benefit that was expressed by Valencia was the real-time session management. They could see on what was the progress of the exam live, so they could see if one student was stuck, one class was delayed. They would contact the center and ask what was going on, as they could see was the status of all the deliveries and the sessions. As well, one of the benefits that they could see is that the platform could support high number of simultaneous students. They had approximately up to 23,000 test takers taking the exam at the same time, and of course the accessibility, which made the test inclusive by design. This was one of the requirements as well from the central government to ensure that all the students have access to this test. Moving forward, what was the main success? So to recap on the numbers, there was approximately 100,000 students from these two grades, from the 4th grade of primary education and the 2nd grade of secondary education, across 1,700 schools. And they reached up to 23,000 simultaneous test takers. In total, there was 360,000 tests delivered. This covered math, English, French, Valencian, language communication. And looking at what were the main results that we achieved on this project. So moving from paper to digital allow the ministry to have real-time insights. Every day at the end of the exam delivery, they could see how many students were supposed to take the exam, how many students actually took the exam, how were the results. They could identify if there were some items that they were not performing correctly, as they could have data exports every day. So if items were identified that they were not correctly presented, they could be modified for the day after. Standards QTI and LTI help them to integrate the platform with other systems, following creation of 1,000 questions into the software. Of course, the 1,000 pilot help for them to prepare and understand what were going to be the difficulties that the different schools were going to face from a digital point of view, connectivity, or teacher training. So what were the questions that the applicator of this assessment was going to have, and then ultimately the inclusive by design. So with accessibility in mind, all the students could participate in this test, and with provided them with multilingual options, so they could take the test in Spanish or Valencian, depending on their choice. And of course, the investment that they are making is cheaper than initially when they were doing it on paper base, due to mostly all the logistics, and then the additional cost of having all the teachers grading these exams. So this was a big success for the customer and of course for Open Assessment Technologies. We want to thank you, EAA, for this award. Of course, we are here to continue helping. Here we have a picture of the team of Valencia picking up the prize, the trophy in London. Yeah, I would like to thank everyone for attending. I believe that I am the last presenter, so thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Miguel. It was a really interesting case study. We have one question from Matthew in the chat for you, and it's about the devices used at the school. So were these exams taken on school-owned devices, or did you have any bring your own device from students?
Yeah, all these exams were taken on school devices, and this was either desktop devices or iPads or tablets in this case.
Did they need to make investment in infrastructure or using existing infrastructure?
They use the existing infrastructure. That's why they have to organize a bit these shifts to accommodate all the students. Since some depends on each of the schools. Some schools they had a 1-to-1 device ratio. Some others, maybe more like, let's say, rural areas, they were not yet prepared for a full digital simultaneous administration. We have to keep in mind that there was approximately the full population is almost 1 million students in the region. So they started the digital transformation a few years ago, and they will progress along.
Great, thanks. And you mentioned other regions in Spain being interested. Were there any key lessons, do you think, that came out of this project that you would do differently if working with others?
I think the key lessons of this is the preparation. It's key to prepare when you're going to run large-scale assessment of this level. It's key to prepare the team that is going to be supervising the assessment, but as well the test centers. They need to know how does the escalation system works. If they find an issue with one student that cannot access the system, whom they need to reach, and to have this process tested, because we know that the day of the exam, the students are nervous and every minute counts. So they don't want to delay the assessment or even cancel the assessment if they have difficulties. So pilot, we believe that is really, really important. And to other customers that follow Valencia in Spain, we always recommend them to run a small pilot so they get familiarized, the assessment central administration plus the schools with the software, and the day of the exam, everything runs smoothly.
Great, thank you. And I think that brings us a little bit out of time. We have looked at questions. Matthew, did you want to do any further questions?
No, that's it. Dates for the diary, folks.
Yeah, just a reminder from me representing the EAA, be part of the conversation. We have a wide program of events, our awards, newsletters. Have a look at how to join the EAA on our website. And the key date coming up would be our Beyond Multiple Choice virtual webinar series in November. And of course, next year's conference and awards has already got a date fixed and a location in London. So that's 8th to the 10th of June, 2026. And thank you to all our speakers. I'll pass back to you, Matthew.
Okay, thank you very much, Hannah. And thank you, Colin, Jeremy and Miguel, for presenting your innovations and your awards. Much appreciated. Just as a reminder, this all goes onto the Transforming Assessment website, the recordings and the slide sets. If any of the presenters have particular links that you'd like to share, email me your link and I'll add it to the recording page. Now, for Transforming Assessment, we'll be running a programmatic approaches to assessment symposium covering Australasia. So that is Australia, New Zealand and East Asia. So if you're in those time zones, we're having a free online, basically it's a virtual conference on the 19th of September. So you can sign up for that on the Transforming Assessment website, coming up very soon. And you're welcome to attend all or some or however you see fit on that. So thank you very much. We will be back again on the 1st of October for another session. That'll be a joint session with the Assessment and Higher Education Network out of the UK. But so look out, if you're on the Transforming Assessment mailing list, you'll see that come through in due course. But thank you very much, folks, and you may just exit by closing your browser window.